Okay, sweet. Good to see you guys all. It's chapter 22. What's happened so far? So, obviously, there's lots of other stuff that's cast before this. So, if you're having problems remembering what has happened, the easiest thing for you to do is to go back and check it out. But, Tom's been training on the top of a mountaintop. They left early one morning because of after Tom blew up his mum's garden shed. They think they've been found out by the Equilibra, so they're having to run away. And Vanessa is intent on teaching him the ability to absorb physical energy from people's punches so that he can so he can survive battle, basically, because she thinks that people are hunting them. Vanessa's very weak at the moment because in the last chapter, if you didn't remember, she was using shooting lightning at Tom, and he was absorbing the energy using his hydro technique. So it turns out that he's got the ability to absorb nearly everything she can give him, which is very strange for such a young person. Cool? So that's a wee rundown on what's happened. At the end of the last chapter, I think Vanessa was literally almost passed out. I'll read it for you. For some reason, you can already take more energy than I can give you. She finished waving him away before adding, "Go practice over there while I recover." Hydro in one hand, Tom shot a massive stream of spiritual fire across the clearing, while pretending to guard himself with the other. It hadn't been 3 hours since Vanessa had started to meditate, and she still hadn't even opened her eyes in two. It had been 3 hours since Vanessa had started to meditate, and she hadn't even opened her eyes in two. The time was welcome, though, and Tom was starting to feel confident about using both spiritual fire and hydro. "How's it going?" interrupted a strange voice from behind Tom, and he spun around to see two men standing in front of the trail to the clearing. Not sure about what they had seen, Tom remained calm and smiled at the strangers. "It's going great, actually. My mum's having a rest," he said, trying to gain a sense of their intentions. "Well, that's convenient," said the bigger of the two men, cracking his knuckles and sending a yellow spark flying into the air around him. Before Tom could yell for help, the smaller man had Vanessa 2 feet off the ground in a chokehold. Kicking and screaming for air, Vanessa was caught unaware, but wasn't going down without a fight. Guys, remember, this is pretend. Lashing out, it's a book, it's not real life. That's what I mean by it's pretend. Lashing out at him with her lightning, but the man blocked it effortlessly and slammed her down over his knee with a resounding crack. All logic told Tom that this was the end of her, but he charged at the man anyhow. Sorry, I just whipped across. But he charged at the man, summoning a huge arc of lightning. He was just about to let loose when he saw a flash out of the corner of his eyes. Quickly adjusting his movements, Tom spun around, spun towards the taller man, releasing his own lightning to counter the oncoming attack. The collision was like nothing Tom had ever seen. A huge wall of crimson lightning crashing into the man's yellow bolts, not only overwhelming it, but completely decimating it, turning the area of the collision into nothing but smoke and ash. Tom turned his attention back to the man standing on top of Vanessa and summoned his hydro to his left hand, feeding his legs with his spiritual energy. He was just about to charge when a noise came from the smouldering heap behind him. "Impressive, little boy. But did you really think you could kill me?" said the taller man, his clothes singed and smoking, but his body seemingly uninjured. Not only outnumbered but outclassed, Tom had no choice but to look for an escape. Scanning the area as the two men started to close in on him, he realized he was going to have to take something special to get away. Dropping his guard completely, Tom kicked the dry earth, sending plumes of dust spraying from his feet, which sparked an idea. "You've got me. There's no way I can beat you two. You're just too powerful." "How did you stop my lightning? That was amazing." "Thought you'd be dead for sure," said Tom, using the conversation to distract them as he started to manipulate and compress the air around him. The smaller of the men started to gloat. Spitting on Vanessa's body, he moved over to join his partner. Tom blocked out the arrogant jabber and focused only on using his spiritual energy to maneuver a huge stream of air into a ball behind him. Sweat beaded down his face as his attackers taunted him, completely unaware of the huge dust-filled energy bomb forming behind him. The ball started to lose shape, and Tom knew it was now or never. Quickly summoning a small stream of lightning to his hands, he shot it at the ball. The seconds before the explosion felt like it was in slow motion. The smaller of the two men, suddenly aware Tom was trying something, dove in the direction of Vanessa, cutting off any chance of Tom saving her. The other man, realizing what was happening too late, leapt for cover. Tom didn't wait to see if the bomb would take them out. So just to explain that, guys, he formed a massive lot of compressed air behind him and then lit it using a little bit of lightning, basically making a huge bomb. Making for the forest, okay, so back to reading. Making for the forest, scrambling down the hillside, Tom's confidence started to bolster as he felt a huge waft of heat hit his back. There was simply no way anyone could survive an explosion that big, he thought, slowing down, sliding into a hiding space behind a collection of rocks and bushes. Tom waited for any sign of life. Seconds turned to minutes, and Tom lay, ear to the ground, hoping against all logic he wouldn't hear anything from the now charred clearing above. After what felt like an age, Tom started to maneuver himself out of his hiding spot, pulling himself clear of the rocky crop. He began to creep towards the summit. Suddenly, he heard it. "Paul, where are you, mate? That little brat will be getting away." Tom's heart sank as he realized not only did his attack prove to be completely useless, his overconfidence had cost him valuable time escaping. Lightning sparked into his veins. Tom turned and bolted down the mountain at unimaginable pace. As the snow started to thin, his confidence built. If he could make it to the riverbed, he would be harder to track. With reckless abandon, Tom smashed his way through the forest, jumping off cliffs and crashing through bushes. Speed was his only concern. He didn't even slow down. Blocking out any thought of giving up, he told himself, escape is all that mattered. He would mourn Vanessa and the life he had left behind when he was free. So, just so you get it, guys, at this point, Tom thinks Tom thinks Vanessa's dead. Like, the other guy beat Vanessa pretty badly, and then Tom blew the whole place up to try and escape. So he's pretty worried about Vanessa at the moment, but he's trying to focus on escaping. Finally, Tom made it to the river and started to traverse the icy rocks, looking for a good place to cross the treacherous water. Eyes locked on the water, he jumped from rock to rock, and with no thought of slowing. Suddenly, with the lack of focus, came back to bite him. Landing on an icy rock, his foot slipped out and he hit the ground hard. Struggling to his feet, he felt a sharp pain run through his leg. Taking a step forward, the pain spiked again, and Tom fell back to the ground. Lying on his back, writhing in pain, Tom examined where the pain was coming from. Pulling his pants, his eyes settled on his knee, which was now twice its normal size. With no option but to continue, Tom quickly pulled his football top off and tied it around his knee. Struggling to his feet, he couldn't help but think his pursuers would be on him any moment. As he began to hobble along the slippery rocks, his pace greatly reduced. Tom began praying for a spot to cross the river, hoping against all hope he could lose them. Suddenly he saw it, the section of the river Vanessa had described. The river turned back on itself and became shallow, making it the perfect place to cross. Stumbling towards the water, Tom carefully edged his way across the slippery rocks, taking his first steps into the river. The stinging of the cold quickly passed into a worrying numbness, which, with every movement, a new part of his body was engulfed with the freezing water, and he quickly lost all notion of its existence. The water now lapping around his waist, Tom was looking down intently, trying to track his foot movement across the brisk current. One wrong step and he would be swept away, and with no hope of surviving. Slowly he made his way towards the bank of the river, his whole body numb from the cold. When he finally stepped out of the water, Tom felt an uncontrollable need to lie down. Fighting against exhaustion, Tom sensed spiritual energy through his body, radiating heat inside. Unable to heat his limbs or dry his clothes, Tom was happy. The fog of hypothermia was beginning to lift, and he was now just cold. Forgetting completely about his knee, the pain muted by the icy water, Tom charged his legs and leapt from where he stood, coming down only meters away, his knee buckling and his body slamming into the rocks. The pain washed over his cold, beaten body, and Tom quickly realized he was not going to be able to escape. Crawling his way up the bank, every movement caused him to shiver in pain. He began to come up with a plan if they caught. He had to come up with a plan before they caught him. Finally, making it off the riverbank, Tom crawled into a huge flat rock and basked in the sun with a view of the river. And what seemed like miles, he realized this was going to be the place. He realized this was the only place he could safely cross, and a plan started to formulate in his mind. Should I go on? Eddie says yes. So what? Any questions as to what's happening so far? I'll carry on. I'll carry on for a wee bit. Last time Tom had tried to attack his pursuers, they were fast enough to outrun his firebomb. This time, he would trap them on the U of the river and give them no choice but to burn or drown. Revenge fueling him, Tom propped himself up and started to absorb as much energy as he could while scanning down the river. Anticipation building, Tom had no idea what these guys were capable of. He just knew they would that he would need more power than ever before. When he saw the first sign of the two men walking their way up the river, Tom began to prepare his attack. Moving from the flat rocks which he was on, he began to hobble towards the rocky cliff. He could use it to brace himself. Tom's view now slightly obscured, he started to draw and compress the air around him, picturing the stream of compressed air moving. So he's going to use the fireball attack again, moving from all directions, swirling around him and coming together. Bit by bit, the compressed air started to form into a massive stream. Moving the huge stream of energy around his body, Tom started to mix his spiritual energy with the compressed air, forming it into a ball in front of him. By the time he caught sight of the first man walking out of the water, Tom had an orb of red pulsing death the size of a Swiss ball in front of him. The second man came into view, and Tom pulled back his right hand, initiating a spark. So he's got a ball about the size of a Swiss ball, those big balls that you do yoga on, in front of him, and he's just about to initiate a spark. Going to send a massive firestorm at them. "Stop, Tom! It's all a training drill," Vanessa screamed, interrupting his focus, and he cut his energy to his right hand. Seconds later, Vanessa's hands were on his left arm, helping him to control the massive ball of power. "Tom, it's a setup. I just wanted to see what you would deal with. I just wanted to see how you would deal with being hunted. You did well, but it's over. It's over now, Tom," Vanessa whispered, wrapping him up in a huge hug. Tom released the energy from the ball, and it was like being struck by a hurricane. Both he and Vanessa getting smashed against the rocky cliff as the ball dissipated. So he didn't, obviously, guys, he didn't light it. It just released as air rather than as fire. So the whole thing was a training drill. Have we got anybody? Yep, currently viewing 3 people. Cool. The huge sense of relief he should have felt was quickly followed by an uncontrollable anger, and Tom pushed Vanessa off him. "I just about killed someone because of a training exercise? How can you justify lying like that? I thought my life was over. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my days without my family. Leave me alone," he yelled, hobbling towards the riverbank. Now the secret was out. Tom stumbled in the direction of the 2 men. "You were lucky. If I had you for dead men just then," he said, as he began to assess the river and look for a way over. "I have a question for you, boy," said the taller of the 2 men, just before Tom took his first step into the water. "Do you fear the Equilibra?" Tom looked at him, baffled. Thought about it. I don't fear what they can do to me. I'll survive. I fear what they could do to my family, my friends. If they had the chance, Tom replied. That is exactly why this happened, young man. Like you, young men like you tend to think they're invincible. It makes them reckless. You had to gain first-hand knowledge of what would happen if you continue to flaunt your power. Next time you sneak out or blow something up, think about how it felt to lose everyone. That's what happens if you're reckless. You spend your life on the run, or you watch your family die. He said, his voice beginning to soften as he continued. I know what it's like. It's happened to me, Tom. It's happened to me. Tom stood on the edge of the water, thinking about what the man was saying, and his anger slowly dissipated. What exactly happened to you? Tom asked, trying to calm himself and breathe through the mix of emotions. The man looked quickly at Vanessa, who nodded, and he began to speak. Unlike Vanessa and Paul here, my master wasn't a supreme genius of the Ligero. He was an average man who had an average mastery of his abilities. After about a year of training, I could already match him in one-to-one combat. And I'm not a freak like you. When I heard tales of the Equilibra, I always believed that I would be able to fight them off. I never thought about how my life would be affected. My friends, my family, my friends. I had a girlfriend. We had no secrets. She knew who I was. She knew what I could do. One day, someone mugged her. I hunted them down and made them pay for it, for what they did to her. Unfortunately, the Equilibra have people everywhere. One of the ambulance officers that dealt with the muggers, after I had finished with them, was Equilibra. I came home that night and my whole family was dead. My teacher, who had lived with us, had tried to defend them. I arrived just in time to watch him lose his arm before he told me to run. Ever since then, I've been under Vanessa and Paul's command on this tiny island. In case you didn't get that, they live on an island, very similar to we do. We live on the South Island. When he finally finished, Tom took a while to absorb what the man had just told him. The weight of the conversation should have completely dissipated his anger, but instead left him still raging and with a lingering feeling of disbelief. Hobbling closer to the taller man, he stood shocked. Stock. I think that's supposed to say shot. He took stock of the story. Ignoring his doubts, he said, I'm sorry for your loss. Ignoring his doubts, he said, I'm sorry for your loss. I couldn't even imagine what it would be like. Turning to Vanessa, Tom looked for a reaction and realized she was looking a little strained, like she knew Tom was looking right through the story. I won't make his mistake, but you need to be honest with me. From now on, I'm not into this whole cloak and dagger stuff, he said, trying to pry the truth out of her. Vanessa looked at him, offered a nod, and then replied, walking in his direction. I'm proud of you, Tom. You did well. I can't believe how far you've come already. The Ligero will let me share more with you now that Paul and Alex can vouch for your loyalty. So the organisation, said Vanessa, as she reached out and put her hand on Tom's shoulder. So the organisation that they are with, the Ligero, have quite a strict hierarchy, guys. hierarchy means like system, like you've got your principal, you've got your just like a school. So that strict hierarchy means that like Vanessa just does what she's told basically, but you might have caught in there. You might have caught something that I sort of read, but you might not have realized I read. Paul, I think it's Paul, the tall guy anyhow, he says, no, it's not Paul. Sorry, I've said the wrong name. But he says, my master was just an average teacher. He wasn't a supreme genius of the Ligero like Vanessa and Paul's master. So Vanessa and Paul had the same teacher. So they've known each other for a very long time. And and Vanessa's teaching Tom, obviously. That's about it. That's where we're going to stop today. Halfway through chapter 23. Oscar, you can come back and watch it. You can watch it from the start and just read through to where you get up to. It's pretty intense. It's that was the big fighting chapter. There's a few big fights from here out. It's gonna get good. Okay, have a great time, and I'll see you later.